So the career that I chose to do my second presentation on was licensed marriage and family therapist. And the organization that I did a lot of my research under was the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. And through that organization, a licensed marriage and family therapist would be helping veterans who have come home from war or have seen things that have caused them to have mental illnesses or have a hard time integrating back into their cultures or into their families. And so licensed marriage and family therapists would help with that process. They could also help families who are at home while they have loved ones who are away. And so those are some of the things that they would be doing under that job category. However, as a licensed marriage and family therapist, you could work under a wide variety of settings. You could work through hospitals, you could work through clinical and professional organizations. You could work through educational facilities. You could work with seminar programs, community-based organizations. There are a lot of different organizations that would utilize the skills of a licensed marriage and family therapist, because there are families in all of those organizations, or even some of the professional clinical work that is associated with individuals can be used under the scope of licensed marriage and family therapists. In working with individuals and integrating them into family types of situations, or if they're younger children or adolescents, those sorts of things. The work environment would usually be a professional setting, an office, a classroom. There might be platforms where you are giving a presentation, and so you would be in front of an audience, maybe in an auditorium or something like that. But for the most part, you have clients who are coming to see you at a facility, and they are coming to meet usually with you one-on-one and go through counseling. The hours of operation could be varied. You could be in an organization like the U.S. Department of Affairs. They have their organization established so that their licensed therapists are working from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. However, some organizations like private practices might have certain therapists staggered throughout the day so that different therapists are available at different times so that they can reach a wide variety of clients. So for example, maybe you would be working from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, and that would be the timeline that you are scheduled to work. So you might have to have a flexible schedule, but that can also be beneficial if you have children in school. Maybe your hours are the 8 to noon hours or 8 to 3 hours, and so you can do that while you have kids in school and things like that. So those are good. If you own your own practice or you start your own private counseling office, or if you practice under your own scope of your own license without an organization or any corroboration, then you would be able to establish your own hours. The only detriment to that is that you are alone. So you're the only one who can cover your clients, and you would be on call all the time. And that would mean that if you're working with families, you would need to be available for them at their discretion if there was an immediate need or something that was urgent that arose. Also, some of the things that fall into the timeline would be sometimes you're called to testify or evaluate certain situations for court. Sometimes you are working with law enforcement if there's abuse or things of that nature, medical concerns. So there are a lot of avenues that would require you to kind of go outside of even your basic 9 to 5 or even your basic schedule that you've set for yourself. So there does need to be some flexibility in that nature. Some of the typical stressors that you would face are, like I mentioned, being on call and having some of those immediate needs being present. Another stressor that is difficult is, like I mentioned, that you're dealing with things that are of a really sensitive nature. So you're dealing with families who are obviously under a lot of stress, and so if they're coming to you, there's a good chance that they're already having difficulties in their marriage, difficulties in their parenting, difficulties with their families, difficulties with their children, or vice versa. Children are having difficulties with their parents in their social peer groups, settings, things like that. Somewhere there's a lack of functionality, and so you're dealing with really stressful situations. But even more so than that, you could be dealing with people who have had abuse and people who are suffering from severe mental illnesses. all the way up to drug abuse and rape and things of that nature, even child abuse. You might be working with parents who have abused their children, and so you have to be able to consider that there's room for progress and be able to put maybe some of your own feelings aside. And so that can be a really stressful situation, because I think it would be really difficult to sit under those circumstances and have to try to be objective and try to be helpful, knowing that you also want to protect the nature of those who've been injured. Another thing that can be stressful is that there's patient counselor confidentiality and therapist client confidentialities, and those are critical. Those are legal arrangements, and so you could find yourself in a lot of trouble if you were to breach that type of confidentiality. Also, you might suffer from the feeling of not being effective. So in this work, you really want to be able to see improvement and progress, but under this line of work, you're also not fully responsible for the people that you're working with. They have to take responsibility for themselves. And so sometimes it might seem like the work that you're doing is totally futile, ineffective. People don't like you, people want to leave, people want to make their own choices. And so sometimes that can be difficult, because you put a lot of effort, energy into helping to find resolutions to problems, and they might continue to just be the same or even get worse with or without you. Some of the common job tasks, I'll kind of give these in list form, is that you will have to ask questions, counsel clients, encourage families, collect information, develop treatment plans, collaborate with other counselors, doctors, psychiatrists. You'll need to track the effectiveness of the programs and the systems that you've put into place. You'll need to write reports, maintain personal and professional boundaries, and like I said earlier, sometimes you'll be required to work with law enforcement, court systems, things like that. The educational requirements are broad but also narrow. So your bachelor's degree can be relatively flexible. You need to have a core in things like psychology and family, but at the same time, there's a lot of room for flexibility. You've got people who are going into rec programs who want to use art as a medium for their therapy, or use physical activity or recreation for a medium for their therapy. And so they might have emphases or even cores in those types of things, and put their emphasis only in psychology and marriage and family, so that they have those prerequisites to get into a master's program. So next you need to get into a master's program. A master's program is required. And with the master's program, that's a little bit more clear. You need to have the marriage and family therapy master's if you want to be licensed, because you want to be able to have that core development in place. Go ahead. And then also you need to have licensing. Sorry. Little boy who fell down. Daddy's taking care of him. So after that, you'll need to have licensing, and so the licensing takes place when you've finished your master's degree. You'll have to receive 2,000 to 4,000 hours of experience under supervision, and then you're qualified to take the exam, which will test your competency skills, and you'll be able to get a license and become a licensed marriage and family therapist and practice under your own scope. So that's a valuable thing to have, especially if you want to be doing some of your own work. You have to have that. The starting salary range is about, well, I've seen varied figures. I think the lowest I've seen is between 30, 35, and 40, but the medium was closer to 50, and the experienced range was between about $70,000 and $80,000. One of the miscellaneous career information notes that I thought was really great was a quote off one of the websites that I found, and it said, "Schooling is important, but all the training in a reputable program will not compensate for interpersonal skills such as having empathy, patience, and flexibility." So this is a field that's very important, that you have some of those character skills developed, or at least that you're working on developing them before you start practicing, because you will find yourself in a lot of situations that require those things. This is also a field that requires you to continue to stay educated. You have to continue to stay on top of the latest trends, the latest upward trends and downward trends with families, individuals, mental health, even physical and medical advances are important. You want to be able to help people with whatever means that you have, whatever you have available. Also, it's really important to know the resources in your areas. So as a licensed marriage and family therapist, you want to be able to have resources that you can direct people to as they find themselves in situations maybe where they're homeless or they're struggling financially. You want to be able to help them with community programs or abused women's shelters, things like that. So anyways, that is my presentation. I hope you enjoy. I hope you've learned as much as I did. Thank you.